So I consider the time that I spent playing Madden football and SimCity as to be almost kind of wasted time. A great chunk of my 20s were swallowed in those games. And yet you've said that playing games is almost key to being a good entrepreneur these days, or to running a company. Explain that.
Well, first I have to say this is why we have different lines of work, because I consider the time I spent writing essays for college to be time wasted. You know, I think that every Fortune 500 company should have a gamer on in the executive suite. I think game design is the new MBA. So if you don't have an MBA yet, play World of Warcraft instead. It's only $12 a month instead of $40,000 a year. And the people are nicer. And I do think that building an organization is like building and playing a game. So if you're building a company, you want to have a product that people over 35 don't understand, and you want to hire employees who are under 35. So people who are under 35 turned 16 with the launch of Netscape, so they've grown up always digital. A guy named Bob Pittman, who's known as the founder of MTV, but before that he started the first experimental interactive TV thing called Cube in Ohio. He came to this realization that people in the West in the US make their lifelong media affinity choice at age 16. You remember when you get your driver's license? You kind of stopped time and all you wanted to do was drive. So childhood is before you were 16. And so in 1995, the people who turned 16 then, born in 79, are now 32 or 33. So anybody that age or younger has a whole different outlook on life. And one is that the world looks like games. So if you are running a company or managing one of those people, you can't do what your college professors did to you, which is feedback in a week or two. You know, there's none of this talk it later. You can't do the let's have lunch and schedule it for 3 months later. People who game are instant feedback. So as a leader of that generation, you have to find a way to give instant feedback.
Do you think games changed your outlook, or did they really mold our synapses, or do our brains, those of us in our 20s and 30s and early 40s?
Well, as you know, I am a practicing medical doctor and brain researcher. There's research coming that that the brain does change, especially from exposure to rich media. And I think we're going to see that the illusion that multitasking is more productive. We're going to see a generation that is more productive multitasking. It's just a learned skill. So
you're saying that basically entrepreneurs need to design with a new audience, a new generation, a different way of thinking. So what for product designers in the audience? What specifically? Give us 2 or 3 things to think about that you've seen work at some of your companies like Zynga.
So starting with pace. So if you're going to build a company, you have to do it like World of Warcraft guild leaders build guilds. You have a weekly calendar and weekly check-ins, and you agree in advance on a process to split up the loot. The other thing about gamers is they believe that constant improvement is possible. So if you're playing a pogo game or you're playing WoW with experience going up, there are multiple ways to win, but every session you can get better. So you want to do this for your employees, that on their own personal career arc, that they can get feedback of constant improvement, both in the short term, medium, and long term. The next thing that you want to do this is something that civilians don't understand, but the most powerful aspect of gaming is not competition, but cooperation. And so you need to build structures where cooperation is rewarded. It turns out in a party of 5, even if they're strangers in what's called a pickup group, you come to expect that each individual is about 20% more productive through overlapping skills. It's the math of teamwork in small teams in games.
We've established your credibility as a hardcore gamer, and now you play games like Farmville and Cityville. Let me ask on behalf of the remaining Zynga skeptics out there, like, are these good games really? Are they really good games?
Castleville is a pretty high work of art, and it's even Frontierville. Brian Reynolds, who did Alpha Centauri and Rise of the Nations, thought it was his best work. And it's partly because, especially for PC game designers, it's more of a purity of design. And then we got to a point in games where the designers finished the game and then waited a year and a half for the artist to paint them. And so they started getting disconnected. And, kind of like talking to your friends through Dixie cups and a string. They got removed, they couldn't iterate. So the game design feels pure. It's definitely a new form that, we see people like Mark Skaggs, each iteration gets new insights. And building games on top of a kind of interrelated system games on top of a server architecture is just really hard. And to do it in a way that wants to be flexible and where the economies don't break, it's really hard. It's kind of mind-bending.
Do you believe that the growing underlying desire to monetize engagement and social behavior in gaming now is affecting the quality of games in a negative or positive way? Do you think that it's more or less redefining what gaming should be for the future, or do you think that it's hurting what the traditional sense of gaming is?
I have mixed feelings about it. So I'm a believer in the profit motive. Again, I mentioned Diablo. I was a Diablo player. They had this thing called BattleNet, which ran servers. It crashed all the time. And the people who worked on it were deeply unhappy and had no honor in their organization because they didn't bring in any money. So at Pogo, we actually turned on microtransactions so that the people involved got honor and made money. They were profit center, not cost center. I think money is just one way that we tell people we like their work. I wish that the world would go to this, that everything's free and pay later if you like it a lot. One of the things that seems to happen in social games is after people pay, they like the experience better. And there's some new rules here. Maybe it has to do with, Kahneman and Freakonomics. But think of all the other walks of life where you pay first and find out later. In free games where there's a way to pay money, what you really want to do is build a long-term emotional contract with users. And if paying money helps make that happen, that you can keep working and they like it better, that's a plus. If it becomes a grind and an irritation, that's a minus. So I think it's the money payment is part of the art, and the trick is to make it better rather than worse. Kind of like wearing clothes.
Thank you.
Thank you.